Hello and welcome to Gain Explains. Today we're focusing on a type of non-fiction writing you've definitely seen before, especially if you enjoy reading books like this. They're called explanation texts. In this tutorial, I'm going to show you exactly how to plan and write an explanation text of your own, step by step. Let's begin. An explanation text is a piece of writing that tells the reader how or why something happens. How a tsunami forms. Why the moon changes shape. How bees make honey. Why we get hiccups. How we digest food. Why zebras have stripes. Writing one. An explanation text begins with a title. Here's mine. How popcorn pops. Now, before we start writing, it's important to think about who our audience is, as this affects how we write the explanation. If we're writing for younger or less knowledgeable readers, we'll need to use simple vocabulary and avoid adding too much detail, which might cause confusion. Our tone can be more informal. For older, more knowledgeable readers, we can use richer vocabulary and add more detail. Our tone is likely to be more formal. For my explanation, I'm going to aim it at younger readers, so I'll keep the language clear, friendly, and just a little bit informal to keep it fun. After the title, our explanation begins with an introduction. As this appears directly below the title, there is usually no need to add a subheading here. The main purpose of the introduction is to briefly tell the reader what the text is about. It should be short, but it also needs to capture the reader's interest. I could spark their curiosity with a fascinating fact. Popcorn is one of the oldest snacks in the world. Archaeologists have found popcorn that's over 5,000 years old. Or I could begin by asking a rhetorical question. Have you ever wondered what makes popcorn suddenly explode into a soft white puff? I think on this occasion, I'll begin with the interesting fact. Next, I'll explain the purpose of this text, why I'm writing it, and what I want the reader to learn from it. It might seem like magic, but there's a real science behind every pop. In this explanation, we'll find out how a tough little kernel transforms into one of the world's most popular snacks. That's the introduction done. Now on to the explanation. It's important to make your explanation clear and interesting. You need to provide the key points in logical order. Let's give it a go. To understand how popcorn works, it helps to know what's inside a kernel. Each one contains a tiny bit of water surrounded by soft starch, all sealed inside a tough outer shell, the hull. As the kernel is heated, the water inside turns into steam. The temperature rises, and so does the pressure inside the shell. Because the outer shell is strong, it holds everything in, at least for a while. Eventually, the pressure becomes too much. At around 180 degrees C, the hull can no longer contain it. As a result, the kernel bursts open with a pop, flipping inside out in an instant. Finally, it cools, and the soft starch hardens into the white, fluffy popcorn we know. What begins as a tough kernel you'd never want to bite into turns into one of the world's favorite snacks. All thanks to heat, pressure, and a clever bit of natural design. There you go. With my audience in mind, I've used simple language and made sure to organize the information into a clear sequence. I've also used some key features that are frequently found in explanation texts. First of all, I've used the present tense and written it in third person. I've used personal pronouns like we and you to make the writing feel more engaging and inviting for the reader. I've used temporal connectives, also called time connectives, to help show the order of events. For example, as, eventually, finally. I've also used cause and effect connectives. Because signposts to the reader why something happens, the cause. As a result, signposts the effect. I've used brackets and dashes to explain technical words, like the hull, or to add extra detail, like with a pop, although it's important to remember not to overuse them. And, whilst I didn't use them in this example, subheadings can also be helpful when writing longer explanations, especially when you want to break the process into clear stages. Finish with a conclusion. This final paragraph should bring the explanation to a clear and satisfying close. It doesn't need to be long, just enough to sum up the key idea and link it back to the reader's own experience. A great way to do this is to show how the explanation connects to everyday life. So, the next time you hear that familiar pop in the microwave, you'll know exactly what's going on inside each little kernel. From steam and pressure to a sudden burst and a fluffy finish. Popcorn is proof that even the simplest snacks can have a surprising story behind them. So here's my explanation text in full. I began with the title, followed by the introduction, the explanation, and the conclusion. The short introduction should grab the reader's attention, and you can do this by sharing an interesting fact or asking a rhetorical question. It also needs to make the purpose of the text clear right from the start. The explanation forms the main body of the text. It should be written in the present tense and in third person. Personal pronouns, temporal connectives, and cause and effect connectives should all be included to help the writing flow. You can also use brackets or dashes to explain technical language or add extra detail. I didn't use subheadings in this example, but for longer, more detailed explanations, subheadings could help organize the information clearly. The conclusion brings the explanation to a close. A good way to do this is by linking the topic back to everyday life and leaving the reader with something interesting to remember. Finally, it's also worth adding pictures and diagrams. These can help explain the process visually, making it easier for the reader to understand each step. A simple label diagram or a step-by-step flowchart can make your explanation much clearer.